It's 9 pages I have, and I just got through the first page. So, oh, have mercy. No, we're almost through page 2. Now, that book I told you about is called, it's by Monsignor Don Luigi Sartori. He was a Monsignor, and he wrote a book on modern dances. So I think it's very good. We're going to republish it. It has an imprimatur from the Dallas Diocese of Fort Worth, and published in 1910. Now, swing dancing is not going to be in there. So he's dealing with basically round dancing, and he sees round dancing, remember the waltz, the polka, I don't know, all the other ones. Basically all the ones, anyway. So he sees all of them as detrimental to our preserving against sins against the sixth commandment. He sees it as a grave, grave problem. Now, I wanted to make it quick because I did have a sister ask me a question. Sister Ann asked me a question about the contra dance because it's popular at her parish. Now, it depends on how they're doing it. Again, if a name of a certain kind of dance gets said here, it isn't necessarily, because they use these names interchangeably for all kinds of different stuff. So if you hear a name of a kind of dance that you're doing at your parish, and it is only touching hands, or it is only dancing singularly, and not with a partner where you're pressed up against them and all this kind of stuff, then it doesn't matter if it has that name. It's probably a permissible dance, because again, we're talking about the postures in dance. So if the posture is men and women separated, or men and women having contact with their hands, or maybe just hooking arms and walking around each other, that stuff is complete. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, again, the moralist would say it's permissible, but it would still have its dangers that have to be looked at. So understand, I don't want you to be boxy about the whole thing. I want you to understand how it all works. We're talking about postures. Having a young lady pressed up against a young man when they're not married and be told that they have to have these certain movements are not appropriate and are going to lead to bad things, especially for that young man. That's a hard thing for a young man. It probably is also for young women. I just know that it is especially hard for young men, especially in our culture that is overly sexualized, and most young men are addicted to pornography. The numbers probably don't even demonstrate the reality of the matter today. Basically, it's this way. You give a young man one of those phones, he's looking at that stuff. And most probably he's looking at that stuff on those phones. You don't give young people those phones. Parents that say, well, I trust my kid. Well, you're nuts, because you can't trust kids that do that. We would scour the forest hoping to find some magazine thrown out somewhere. That's what kids would do in my neighborhood. And you didn't ever find it, but you were just hoping for it. Because young kids want to see, they don't understand. It's just the reality. Give them the World Wide Web in their pocket. What do you think they're looking at? I mean, give me a break. They don't have anything else to look at on that thing. They don't care about sports. So, Don Luigi, he writes this. It's a beautiful book. I didn't know what else. I put some quotes in here. It is a good book. But he does say something. Anyway, I won't go into that. Let me just keep going. Okay. It's another book that I want to get. He's quoting this man. I'm going to read the whole quote, but let me just read it. Mr. W.C. Wilkinson, so quote, Mr. C. Wilkinson, as cited by who published in one of the American Quarterly Reviews an article on dance of modern society, says the dance consists substantially of a system of means contrived with more than human ingenuity to excite the instinct of sex to action, however subtle and disguised at the moment, and its sequel to the most bestial and degrading. He goes on to quote Gail Hamilton in an Eastern journal saying, the thing in its very nature is unclean. Now this is the waltz, things that we would think is just a normal elegant thing to do, because that's, from our perspective of our culture today, just a normal, elegant thing. The thing is, in its very nature, says this person, is unclean and cannot be washed. The very pose, remember we're talking about the poses, the postures. The very pose of the parties suggests impurity. Think about it. Why do we think it's okay now for a young man and a young woman to be pressed up against each other and moving around freely in public? We think that's okay. And so much so, the homeschooling moms will have their kids do it at 12 years old to prove that they're not socially awkward. You don't have a 12-year-old start pressing up against another 12-year-old little girl. Little boys at that age know that's a bit strange, and their bodies react to it. We got to have a bit of common sense with the stuff. Now, we give these quotes to show that the day when the dances become, in these days when the dance become vogue, they scandalized, in those days when they became vogue, they scandalized society. Now, after well over 100 years, it's almost 200 years, when we are faced with forms of dancing which are beyond belief, we look to these forms from over 100 years ago and think they're wholesome. But they scandalized the people from back then. In fact, it seems very common today, especially in current American society, that is in Catholic society, to believe that the marker for morality can move. I've received this quote from lots of people. They say this, this is detrimental. This is very sad to hear this. They will say, societal norms have changed. This is traditional Catholic will tell me this. Societal norms have changed. And so what's acceptable now is different than before. The problem with that is this, and I think I have a quote that'll say that, but a problem with that is this. We worship a God who's unchangeable, and our Lord Jesus Christ is the Word of God. He is truth incarnate. And our job as Catholics is simply to conform ourselves to that truth. That means we have an objective truth. That marker doesn't move. What was good for Christians in the year 200 is good for Christians in 2025. What was bad for Christians in the year 200 is bad for Christians in the year 2025. Because there has to be a complete continuity with our fathers in the faith. Because our God doesn't change. St. Jerome says in his book against Vigilantius, who criticized the saint because he lived a life of retirement. See that? See, when somebody doesn't live a life of retirement, you criticize the one that lives a life of retirement. When someone doesn't engage in dance, you criticize them because they don't. When someone isn't married, you criticize them because they're not. Because you are married, you criticize them because they're not married. This is the way things work. So this one's criticizing St. Jerome because he lives in a cave. I confess my frailty, St. Jerome says. In recounting the possible occasion of sin, he mentions as a probable one the danger of being attracted to a worldly woman who might allure a man to a sinful embrace. If the saint feared the gaze of an attractive worldly woman and felt that he could not resist even such a remote temptation, how, it may be asked, can a young man and woman dancing with partners of the opposite sex promise themselves immunity from sin? Do they not place themselves in a very approximate occasion of sin, or rather, do they not rush blindly into sin itself by engaging in the illicit embrace so graphically described by the ex-dancing master above quoted? I didn't write that quote here. But that quote is this. It was somebody who wrote a book in that time period when that dance came. He was a dance master during that period. And he finally left teaching the waltz to people. And he wrote a book called From the Ballroom to Hell. And he explains a situation that he had, common situation, a young woman with the virtue of shame. Unfortunately, I've read in some of these blogs, shame is not a virtue. I couldn't believe it. This traditional Catholic. So, this young woman had the virtue of shame, meaning she was modest and she was pure. But her parents wanted her to have the cultural experience of knowing how to move on the dance floor, that is the waltz, if they had to go to balls or things like that in the social environment that they were in. So he has this young lady there, and you've got the dance master, this older gentleman, and he goes up to this young woman who's never been touched by a man before, and he takes her into his arms, right? There's got to be he's got to show his confidence. Presses her right up against him, his hands on her back, or just above her backside, just there on her back. He's got hold of her. Now he starts to move her around the dance floor. And he talks about the emotion that she has, how strange this is for her. And after a short time, because when you're learning dancing, you've got to dance with multiple partners. You got to be in the embrace of multiple people to become good at this dancing. So you can move with these different people according to the emotion and the music. He said within just a few months, she had arrived at a very bad end, meaning morally. And so he finally found his way out of dancing. That's what he's talking about here. So in that case, if you have such a young lady and all she's doing is there with the teacher and things like that, but getting used to being in the embrace of all these different men, but you can see, is that really right? You have a young lady, wouldn't it be nice to have a young lady who's a virgin and who is modest and all this, and then enters into a beautiful marriage where there's the sacrality of things, where you can keep that purity? Instead, you want to throw it to the winds. And we don't think anything of it because our culture throws purity to the winds at the youngest age, just by going outside nowadays. The rule of modern dance is close contact between a male and a female in order to dance well. So what do the moralists say? Monsignor Sartori, he says this: sitting from the same time period of moral manuals, citing. I typed all this really quick. There's going to be a few of these things. So citing from the same time period of moral manuals, he says this: all Catholic theologians, as a result, base their arguments on old dances which do not admit close bodily contact between the sexes. If these dances were performed modestly and without impure intention, they were considered by those theologians to be lawful, but yet dangerous. If there wasn't close bodily contact, they were still lawful, but they were dangerous. St. Alphonsus says this, and this really helps because he mentions the hands. He says this: dances, unless they are done with bad ends or with danger of inciting others or oneself to lust, or with other bad circumstances, are not evil according to what they are, nor acts of lust, but of joy. But when the Holy Fathers exceedingly rebuke them, they speak about foul dances. So what he's saying here is what a lot of the modern Catholics modern meaning traditional Catholics, would say about dancing. See, we don't have any ill ends. These Catholic universities that are doing this, have the dance competitions, they don't have any ill ends. They're not inciting to lust, which they don't know. But see, they don't have any ill ends there. They're trying to do it venerably. There's people there. But then it says this: St. Alphonsus dances, as St. Antoninus teaches, are licit per se. Antoninus was a bishop, Dominican of Florence, if I'm not mistaken. That's who he's talking about. He was a very astute moralist and theologian. He says they're licit per se, provided they are done by secular persons with upright persons and upright manner, namely, not with immoral gestures. The Salomonicans from Spain, say that there was a good university there, say the same thing, and then a host of others, 𝐂𝐻𝐃𝐄𝐃, Bonacciana, etc. Moreover, to lightly touch the hands of a woman in dances will either be without fault or the lightest venial sin, as Cajetan notes and others. And so to say, the key here is the touching of hands, not embracing somebody. See that they're convoluting the whole thing. They're trying to say, but subjectively, I don't think that what's happening at this university, Catholic College, is doing these different things. It doesn't look immoral to me, but we've been skewed by the way things work. The point is, it's on circle dances or round dances. We're going to go ahead and put swing dancing, though it's not a round dance. We're kind of throwing it in there because its poses are very similar. Our Monsignor continues, this doctrine, however, has no bearing on the waltz and other modern dances. Such a doctrine is calculated to mislead people. And that's exactly what's happening today with these Catholic apologists for dancing. They don't mean it. I don't think any of them mean it. I don't think they understand it. And I think that they're using their common sense, which is skewed by a perverted culture, and they're arriving at the wrong conclusion. It is absurd to cite such a doctrine in defense of modern balls, which exclude modesty entirely. It's wrong to say that modern dances are in themselves indifferent actions intended for joy, and that they are not bidden by any law, which they all do. They all say those things. They're all just for joy. They're for exercise. They're for the gender roles, and they're for and the law doesn't forbid them. So they're able to do all. They all say this stuff today. The present question is not of dancing in the abstract. The modern dance does not exist in the abstract. It exists, like most things, in a certain way, and is a true, actual, concrete thing, a substance with ugly accidents, modes and manners, a social institution, well determined in form, with specific rules, demanding physical proximity and close contact between the sexes, and always inclining by further regulations to multiply opportunities for something more daring. And that's the problem. Dancing is a passion. Now, when you look at it, people are going to be, it is not, Friar. Why are you saying all these things, Friar? I didn't quote all of this, but the friars gave me a bunch of beautiful quotes from Sister Lucia, the seer of Fatima. Jacinta loved dancing, and she gave it up so that she could appease our dear Lord. She gave it up as a sacrifice, and she was only dancing out of joy. Lucia loved dancing, and she writes she had to give it up because she was developing, after she saw the Blessed Virgin, she was developing a passion for it. That's the word she used. She's writing to the bishop saying, I know you would never expect to hear this kind of stuff from us, but it's important to hear. She talked about how bad dancing was for them. It was Francesco who came to her and said, you have to stop doing this. You've seen Our Lady. You know what she said. You have to stop it. So she did. And when she did, all the children, because they were coming to her for what? She would lead them in dances. And then finally she stopped and she said, let's go pray. And then they all wanted to go pray with her. And this is exactly what can happen in these youth groups, or not youth groups, the young adult groups. We have to find other activities for them, because it's not that they need to dance. They need wholesome time together to get to know somebody of the opposite sex and determine whether they want to enter into a marriage with them. That's an important thing. And they need to have wholesome ways to do it. This form of dancing them giving, it leads to a type of passion. And what does that do? It gets more daring. Because they go home and they look it up. Because this is what they'll tell me. Yeah, but Friar, we don't do that kind of swing dancing. Yeah, but those boys, they go home and they look it up on the internet. I've talked to them. I asked, we have 3 friars that used to do that stuff. And then they know a whole host of people. One of them was leading kind of the crowd in the swing dance. They didn't know any better. They all go home and they look up the new moves. It leads to stuff that's more daring. So here's a quote talking about the physical proximity. Now this comes from a lady who has her own. Again, I'm not trying to throw this lady under the bus. I bet she's a super sweet lady, and I think she's trying to do good. But because nobody's out there to guide anybody now, people are off just trying to do good, but it's all misguided. She's got her own little, it's this waltz party. It's traditional Catholic social dancing. It's a website just for dancing. But it says on there this: the lady and the gentleman should not stand directly in front of each other, but a little to their left side. That is, the partners should be, okay. Then it says, the ladies and gentlemen's shoulders shouldn't touch, but the pair should stand close together. Toronto subway at rush hour close together. Do you hear that? I know you're getting tired. It's terrible stuff. I'm forcing you into this. But they're to stand, the young man and the young woman, they're not just to stand close together, but Toronto subway close together, pressed up against each other during rush hour. That's how at the Catholic, at St. Michael's Miss party, this is how you got to dance with the local one to show that you're good. It's broken. This stuff's broken. The gentleman keeps his hands firmly on the lady's shoulder blade. Well, there's only one hand on the shoulder blade. Where's the other hand? For the waltz? You did the waltz. Is that where it goes? One goes here. Do you do both? Then one goes there. Is that firm too? And then it says, keeps his hands firmly on the lady's shoulder blade unless he gently pushes her into a spin. Firmly. Shoulder blades. I don't know. These are the directions. So the good Monsignor continues, devout Christians hold round dancing to be immodest in general, as well as in particular cases. We do not admit the possibility of round dancing at a distance. This could not be waltzing according to the exegesis of the rules of waltzing, etc. In waltzing, bodily conduct cannot be avoided. It would be presumptuous to assume the position of the waltz and to claim modesty and innocence. Men and women are not justified in exposing themselves to lust or to alluring partners or onlookers to it. The problem isn't just people spinning around the dance floor. There's a bunch of people watching it, and it has an effect on people when they're seeing it. Now, the swing dancing they're doing, like I was saying, at the local, they're not local, but these Catholic colleges, you've got a bunch of people sitting there, and you got this attractive young girl and this attractive young man, and they're out there. The young man spins around. You don't see up his pants, but the young girl spins around and you see up her dress. Over and over and over again. They had one on there that I watched. It was part of a story from a news agency, the Catholic Herald, which is, I think that was a good, when I was in England, it's in England, it was a good Catholic newspaper, but they're citing all this swing dancing and promoting it. 70 churches with swing dancing. Okay. Well, they have a little video that they made to show this, and one of it's from one of these Catholic universities, Catholic colleges, and they got these two people. They start off by doing a cultural Catholic dance, where they're doing the clogging and stuff, and they're dancing next to each other. That's appropriate. And then they do this kind of fake thing where they fall down on the ground, and he has this cardboard thing. I didn't have sound on. I'm just trying to get a gist of what's going on. And they're in costume or whatever. And then the swing dance music starts, and they start violently swing dancing. It horrified me. I mean, he's grabbing her by the neck and spinning her down to the ground and bringing her back up again. And it was all so fast and rough. It horrified me. And there you go. That's that. It has to be more daring. Okay, so this Bouvier says, to be present at a ball, at balls, seriously indecent by modest dress, manner of dance, words, songs, jest is a mortal sin. This Bouvier is a moralist. Jest, let's say, is a mortal sin. Hence, the German dance, vulgarly called waltz, he says, can never be permitted. It's one of the moralists of the time, probably early 1900s. Sabetti in 1902 as well. We know a great theologian states that some theologians called round dancing very unlawful. J.N.Coates' Moral Theology, published in 1898, mentions various theologians who most severely condemn dances which admit close bodily contact between men and women. And he says that it's impossible to avoid lust while engaging in such dances. He corroborates the statement by the experience and evidence given by penitents. And this is the thing I don't get. Because I'm going to read you an email right now that I received from somebody. But first, the third order rule says this. 1800-year-old rule, or 800-year-old rule that is made lots of saints. Let them with the utmost caution keep away from dances and shows with which savor of license, as well as from all forms of dissipation. Now, it doesn't say no dancing. It says that shows which savor of license. Dances and shows which savor of license. Now, an email from a young man that sent us something. I'm going to read it to you. I'm not going to give any more detail because I don't want to give away identity or anything like that. But it says this: as to dancing, to be honest, I don't have to imagine the problems with dancing. I know them. So this is somebody who wanted to join the third order, but they like dancing. So the argument starts. So I got to have the good friar write him back, tell him these things. Just, okay. So there's a conversation going on about dancing, and this is his response. To be honest, I don't have to imagine the problems with dancing. I know them. There has been many a dance when I have retreated into prayer because of temptation. Perhaps also, I don't always have the best intention when going to one, but I have been trying to purify the way I look at women. And I hope that lately my intentions have been better. These are Catholic. This is someone going to Catholic young adult dances, obviously, or at the university. So he says, with this, by the book's condemnation, we sent him the book, condemnation of dancing is not that it doesn't make sense, but it's that it's against most priestly advice I've received from traditional priests. This is the problem we're running into. Now, the thing that I have a hard time understanding, and you'll hear it in this, oftentimes these priests have them in confession. They hear the problem they're having. And then they're encouraging them to go to something that they can't endure. This I don't get. He says, ballroom dancing is widely accepted and practiced in traditional Catholic circles, probably more practiced there than in normal Catholic circles. And I think he's right. As an accepted and helpful way for young Catholics to get to know other Catholics, it is viewed as a form of exercise and has the support of many priests, at least tacitly, if not openly. The priest I have gone to for direction, most at home, and the closest thing I have to spiritual direction, if anything, encourage dancing. So they're encouraging it. The priest I go to confession to almost every week on campus has never, in my memory, told me that I shouldn't dance. I was once at a traditional parish where they had a swing dance with a priest as a judge. Now it is written there that priests aren't to attend these dances. But nobody knows about those rules anymore, so nobody really cares. But not only should they not be judging, they should not be present. This same parish is the same one where I first attended the pre-55 Holy Week. In other words, my qualms about dancing have mostly been treated as scruples by priests, and I find abundant for its support among traditional circles. It's because the passion of it's growing. Inasmuch as dancing is a social thing, and the social norms of a society do change. Do you hear this? It seems that we've gotten to a point where dancing is mostly seen as innocuous, at least by priests, who are pastors of flocks of people, though there are some exceptions. So society changes, so it's not so bad now. I also think that there are certain benefits, which are not small, which can come from dancing in a social setting, and that it can help to diminish far worse evils. See, that's a common error today, that we can do evil to diminish greater evil. That's not true. We always have to do good. We always have to do good. We always have to be conformed to truth. Even if it's at a cost, we have to do good. To be honest, I hear you loud and clear. This is what he says to our good brother that was writing him. I hear you loud and clear on the problems with dancing, and I don't do it obsessively. We had dances on St. Joseph's feast day, and I stayed outside most of the time and abstained. But why? If it's good, why did you abstain from it? If dancing was straight up sinful, it would be different, but it isn't. And he's right. He's right, but you got to understand the difference in dancing. Dancing isn't straight up sinful, but forms of dancing should not be, because they basically are. I mean, if they were doing circle dancing there, that would be a whole different story. If they're doing the Virginia Reel there at their parish, that would be a very sweet occasion for people to get together as long as they took the proper precautions. But they're not doing that. They're letting them engage in this bodily conduct and all the other stuff that goes along with it, thinking and convincing themselves that this is okay. Authority of the church. The fathers of the first, and now I'm not going to go into all the stuff that you can read about this yourself, but because it's already been, as I say, poo-pooed by these, what are they called, the bloggers and the new Catholic evangelists on dancing, they all have brought up these things on, well, they were only talking about something else. This is because they didn't like the masquerades. They were having balls and people were wearing masks, and that wasn't good. So it wasn't really the dancing and all this other stuff. So I'm not really going into that, but there are some quotes in here that really show us what we're not supposed to be doing, and that's exactly what we're doing. So I just got these short quotes. The fathers of the First and Second Baltimore Plenary Council, which is important because that's here. That's the United States. Against modern dances, quote, declare such diversions to constitute an offense against God, society, and the family. They include in their condemnation not only those who promote those dances, but also who encourage them by their presence. The bishop did not refer the bishops did not refer their condemnation to the old style square dance, which would be like a type of circle dancing. Like I said before, there's nothing wrong with square dancing if it's a circle dance. But the round dancing of square dancing, see, they perverted it. And now they trick people into it. See, there's nothing wrong with square dancing. The old style square dance, there's nothing wrong with. which excludes, this is still a quote, which excludes bodily conduct of the different sexes, and which could be performed decently. But they condemn the waltz and other modern dances, which according to the code of corrupted moral society demanded close embrace. The point is close embrace. You got to get that point out of everything I'm saying into your mind. It's about close embrace, not this dance or that dance or the name of this one or that one. If they're not doing the close embrace stuff at your parish, I don't care what name they give it. You're allowed to do it. If they're doing the close embrace stuff, I don't care what name they give it. You're not allowed to do it. Dancing's not evil if you're doing the right kind. If you're doing the wrong kind, it is, because you're doing the wrong thing. It's a broad name that they give to a lot of different stuff. Now, it says the first plenary council of Baltimore, 1852, protested against round dances especially, because they are highly indecent. The second plenary council of Baltimore, 1868, says, "We consider it to be our duty to warn our people against those amusements which may easily become to them an occasion of sin." Now, you heard the young man up there. It easily becomes for him an occasion of sin, so he'll wait outside. No, we don't go to things that are occasions of sin. You don't say, "I'm going to start going to the beach because I want to be able to look at women appropriately." You don't do that. You just don't do that. It's occasion of sin, so you're sinning because you're putting yourself in an occasion of sin. It's what Gandhi did. Gandhi wanted to overcome himself, so he got a prostitute and got a room, and he just sat there all night and proved that he didn't have to do anything bad. That's stupid. We don't do that. We don't do that. You think it in your head, not a good idea, not going to do that. It's an easy one. So I'll read it again. "We consider it our duty to warn our people against those amusements which may easily become to them an occasion of sin, and especially against those fashionable dances which, as at present carry on, are revolting to every feeling of decency and propriety, and are fraught with the greatest danger to morals. And to all those priests who have the care of souls, the same council in its 472nd decree says, quote, "Let them attack and boldly condemn immodest dances." Let them attack. I mean, this is a very bold language. Let them attack and boldly condemn immodest dances, which are becoming more and more common every day. Let them admonish the faithful how much they sin, not only against God, but against society, against their families, against themselves, who take part in these dances, or at least seem to countenance them by their presence. Let them teach parents particularly of how grievous a judgment they become guilty if they expose their young sons and daughters to dangers of losing purity and innocence of mind by allowing them to be thus entrapped in the snares of the devil. This is the literary translation from the Latin of something that comes from, it came from a diocese. Quote, "Soon after the Archbishop, the Council, Archbishop Martin John Spalding enacted the Diocesan Synod. He acted this synod for the following statute. It says this, quote, "As the fathers of the Second Plenary Council of Baltimore, in their pastoral letter to the people, who wholly condemned those dances which are commonly called waltz and round dances, we decree that they are not to be taught, nor are they to be tolerated in the colleges, academies, and schools of the diocese, even for the sake of recreation among persons of the same sex." So not even with the same sex are they supposed to be tolerated. Interesting quote from one of the apologists right now for dance. And these people, I esteem a lot of these people. I'm not trying to be in an argument with any of these people. I think they're all just a lot of them are wonderful people. They're trying to do good things in the church. But again, I just think there's a misunderstanding of how all this stuff fits together. There's kind of a use of common sense on it without informing our conscience properly on how to arrive at a proper common sense. So this came from on something on the healthy, normal societal social recreation, because we just read that from the council. And the very end of that, Archbishop saying, even for the sake of recreation among persons of the same sex. And then we read this. What struck me, this person who's writing this article on encouraging people to dance, traditional Catholics to dance, what struck me back then was how good, wholesome, innocent, and healthy these dances at one of the Catholic colleges, the famous Catholic colleges, dances were. Now remember, that's completely subjective. This individual found them wholesome and everything great, but it's still subjective. So far from being wild, lavish, and immodest. But we do have to ask the definition. What might be the definition of modesty? So we do have to. There has to be an objective principle for modesty, because if not, it becomes a subjective thing on what modesty is. They were exhibitions of good taste, social restraint, a safe environment, as we say nowadays, for getting to know members of the opposite sex, and plenty of harmless fun and physical exercise. I put a little thing in here, but why not badminton? Why can't they play badminton? Badminton's a good one. We played badminton when I was in school. I loved it. You can get real aggressive, but it's not an aggressive thing. Like, you can be aggressive, but the badminton thing still only goes really slow. But you could do badminton. You could do pizza parties. One of the things I've been recommending to people is having a pizza night. If they did pizza night with the young adults, once a month, there's more than you don't just go buy the pizza. You make the pizzas, and you have teams that make the pizzas, and then you get the ingredients together. But then there's all kinds of stuff. We had two friars that, back in Italy, they were French. They were French friars. And they actually, before they came into religion, were famous on one of these, become famous with your talent shows. And he had a pizza dough routine. And I got to see it. It was the silliest thing I'd ever seen. Like, he's spinning it around. All these ladies, all these young girls are screaming and yelling. He's spinning the pizza around. He's rolling up one shoulder, rolling down the other. He's flying up over here and throwing it up again. Because his dad owned a pizza joint. And so he knew how to do all this pizza stuff. And it's super funny to watch. I don't know. But then they had him do it one day in the hallway, but it was with a towel. Like, you can wet the towel a little bit, and you can spin the thing around. It's going up one shoulder, down the other. Ridiculous. But anyways, you could do that with young people. That's appropriate, probably. It's just pizza. But anyway, let's get back to this thing. So it says physical exercise, which is exactly what young adults need from time to time in order not to be excessively burdened with the usual cares of life, or even just as a way to get off a computer and a phone for a little while. Again, are we talking about adults? We're talking about adults that should be ready to get married. If they can't sort this stuff out, they're not ready to get married yet. This is a problem with this kind of way of thinking. All right. So I got an email from a Catholic mom after one of my talks. Quote, she said, 2 years ago, my family, along with two others, stood up against the Thai families at a traditional parish out west. I put that. She told me what parish it was, but I didn't want to tell you what parish it was. demanding swing dance to be held in the new parish hall. It was heartbreaking, as this was our parish home for 7 years, and we had just recently moved 1 mile away from the parish. We invested a significant amount of time in the parish, and we're so grateful to have what we thought was an authentic Catholic parish in which to raise our children. We could not understand what was happening at dances, as dances had never been part of the parish culture for the prior 15 years. We thought that the parish leadership would realize that these dances were going to destroy any budding vocations at the parish, as well as compromise any future holy, happy, and healthy marriages. What happened next was completely unexpected, but it was clear that my family and 2 others speaking out against these dances for our teenage children caused a firestorm. The mothers who wanted these dances unleashed a campaign against our efforts to keep these dances out of the parish, and that resulted in us, along with others, leaving the parish. I hear about this stuff all the time, and I'm sure all of you have heard about it too. They persecute the ones who are still trying to live an upright, moral, authentic Catholic life. They throw them out. And it's unfortunate, but these people get put kind of in charge of the parish. They tend to be a newer influence. They have, after COVID, a lot of groups came into these parishes, and you have a lot of these problems now. Finding a home at another local traditional Catholic parish, one that's rooted in charity, and with families who are on the same page regarding the dangers of activities for their children, such as dances. It has been 2 years, and I'm still trying to make sense of everything that happened. I felt really alone in standing up against these families and the parish leadership who supported them at that time, but I had to do this to protect the purity of my children. Beautiful. God bless her. Our Lady of Good Success talks about the cultural corruption that's going to come in our time. I know a lot of you have read it. Remember, Our Lady of Good Success there in Quito, Ecuador, is very... there's just been incredible prophecies that Our Lady made, 500 years ago that come true. So she was talking about religious life and the culture in our time period. Our Lady of Good Success, so at the end of the says this, quote, "At the end of the 19th century and throughout a great part of the 20th, many heresies will be propagated in these lands. The precious light of faith will be extinguished in souls due to the almost total corruption of customs." That means morals. The small number of souls who will secretly safeguard the treasures of faith and virtues will suffer a cruel, unspeakable, and long martyrdom, like that woman and her family. To be delivered from the slavery of these heresies, Our Lady continues, those whom the merciful love of my Son has destined for these restorations will need great willpower, perseverance, courage, and confidence in God. To try the faith and trust of these just ones. There will be a time when we will seem lost and paralyzed. It is at that moment that will begin the joyful time of the complete restoration. That's probably the era of peace that Our Lady promises us. But it's going to get bad. And only a few are really going to know what's going on and are going to care to do anything about it. Just read that last part. Those destined for this will need great willpower, perseverance, courage, and confidence in God. To try the faith and trust of these just ones, there will be a time when all will seem lost and paralyzed. We have to remember that. It's hard to remember. She continues, the passions will erupt, and there will be a total corruption of customs, morals. Satan will reign almost completely by the means of the Masonic sects, which now she's saying this before Masonry existed. So you have to understand, Masonry did not exist yet. It still didn't exist for like another 200 years, something like that. Which have infiltrated all the social classes and the church, will subtly introduce its teaching into domestic ambience in order to corrupt the children, and the devil will glory in dining upon the exquisite delicacy of the innocent hearts of children. What do you think about that? Our Lady said that. That's pretty powerful words she's saying. Woe to the children of these times. It will be difficult to receive the sacrament of baptism and also that of confirmation. She goes on another place further. In these unhappy times, there will be unbridled luxury, which will ensnare the rest into sin and conquer innumerable frivolous souls who will be lost. Innocence, hear this one. Innocence will almost no longer be found in children, nor modesty in women. In this supreme moment of need of the church, the one who should speak will fall silent. Now, of course, that means the Pope, but it also, I think, means the bishops, even though it's in the singular. I think it's also the bishops and the priests. The one who should speak will fall silent. In this way, vocations to the priesthood will be lost, which will be a true calamity. She continues, the atmosphere will be saturated with a spirit of impurity, like a filthy ocean. It will run through the streets, squares, and public spaces, that is society, with astonishing freedom. So, how do we think that the spirit or the social norms have changed and so we can accept them? I'll read it again. Like a filthy ocean, it will run through the streets, squares, and public spaces with astonishing freedom. There will be almost no virgin souls left in the world. The delicate flower of virginity will be threatened by complete annihilation. Horrifying. And just so sad, because it's just without virginity, it will be necessary for the fire from heaven to fall upon these lands to purify them. Everything's going to have to burn. So it's not puritanical Jansenism, but discipleship of Jesus Christ our Lord. It's not rigorous or scrupulous, but a desire of conformity to the higher things. This is why we talk about this. It isn't because we're trying to make things difficult for young people who want to enjoy each other's companies and find a good spouse. It's not because we want to get in the way and make difficulty for pastors at their parishes and try to intervene in some way that isn't appropriate. We simply see there's a difficulty there, and we all have a duty towards the spiritual and the corporal works of mercy. I see my brothers and sisters in the faith falling into a trap, and what they're doing is their conscience is being malformed because of laziness. This is a type of sloth. What sloth is essentially is this. These people seek a good. They're seeking a good. We think sloth is just being lazy. And it is being lazy. But they're seeking this good, even an eternal good. But there's a difficulty in the way. That is purity, virtue, true manliness. And this difficulty that stands in their way, they want to push it out of the way so they can just easily obtain that good. Sloth. Now what you don't realize, what St. Bonaventure talks about sloth, You'll do almost anything to rip somebody to shreds if they stand in your way. People become little demons because of sloth. It is a huge problem. He has it in the triple way in helping people to readjust their spiritual life, because sometimes that's us and we don't know it. And we have to identify if it's us so we can tweak it and make it go away and get right back on the right path. Our Lord said this, Colossians, give you a couple of scripture quotes. Colossians 2:20, if then you be dead with Christ from the elements of this world, why do you yet decree as though living in the world? Now, sometimes these don't make sense because we just hear them and we kind of catch half the words. If then you be dead with Christ, baptized from the elements of this world. You're dead from the elements of this world. You're a supernatural creature in Jesus Christ. Why do you yet decree as though living in the world? Why do you yet choose the things of the world? Really? Dancing is really a good thing for those who are seeking the living God and want to become images of Christ and His Blessed Mother? It's really a good thing for us to be doing? Why do you decree the world? Colossians 3:1-5. Therefore, if you be risen with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Mind the things that are above, not the things that are upon the earth. Mortify, therefore, your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, lust, evil, concupiscence, and covetousness, which is the service of idols. Seek the things that are above. 1 Peter 4:2. That now he may live the rest of his time in the flesh, not after the desires of men, dancing, drinking, smoking, beard balm. Not that beard balm's bad, it's just weird. Beard balm's bad. But you think about it, St. Paul, I'm going to stop the quote, I'll start reading it again. But St. Paul talks about it's a shame for a man to nourish his hair. What about nourishing his beard? St. Paul never even thought. He never even thought about nourishing your beard. Now that he may live the rest of his time in the flesh, not after the desires of men, but according to the will of God. For the time past is sufficient to have fulfilled the will of the Gentiles, for them who have walked in in riotousness, lust, excessive wine, reveling, banqueting, and unlawful worship of idols. Therein they think it strange that you run not with them in the same confusion of riotousness, and they speak ill of you. This is what happened to that mother. It's going to happen to any of you. It's what's going to happen to us by publishing this. Matthew 5:28, but I say to you, that whosoever shall look on a woman to lust after her, hath already committed adultery with her in his heart. And if thy right eye scandalize thee, pluck it out, and cast it from thee. For it's expedient for thee that one of thy members shall perish, rather than that the whole body be cast into hell. And if thy right hand scandalize thee, cut it off, and cast it from thee. For it is expedient for thee that one of thy members should perish, rather than thy whole body be cast into hell. What does it mean, scandalize thee? That is, and this is from the commentary from the Dewey, if it be a stumbling block or an occasion of sin to thee. So if he's saying that about a member of your body, now you're not really supposed to do that. Origen did that, and it's not reputed to him as holy. He castrated himself, and he shouldn't have done that. So, that wasn't good. But you could cut off dancing from your life. like little Jacinta did, who loved dancing. When her brother died, he died in war, and she couldn't stop crying. So she's only 6 or 7. So they knew she loved to dance. So they started dancing. And she would dance, but she didn't stop weeping. Streams came down weeping for her brother, but she still danced. She loved dancing so much, but still she let it go because she knew it would please God. Jacinta wasn't doing anything that was sinful, but she still let it go because she thought it would please God. If it's a stumbling block, an occasion of sin to thee, by which we are taught to fly the immediate occasion of sin, though they be dear to us, as dancing might be, or as necessary as a hand or an eye. 1 Thessalonians 5:20. Always rejoice. Pray without ceasing. Extinguish not the spirit. For all appearances of evil, refrain yourself. And may the God of peace himself sanctify you in all things, that your whole spirit and soul and body may be preserved blameless in the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Beautiful. Do you see the difference? We talk about dancing, and it just makes you feel sick. You say these beautiful things that all have to do with the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and thinking of heaven and the sanctification of the body and the soul, and it really lifts you up. Now you can see how to form the conscience and see where those red flags go off on should I be doing a thing, not doing a thing. Does that thing help me get to heaven or not?
Hear the angels standing of the infant in the straw. Ox is here and trembling stands, with the ass near God made man. See the shepherds kneeling, God in flesh revealing. Here, yes, here, now, really, truly dear. Mary is mother, loves him with her singing. Choirs of the angels, tuneful praise are bringing. Hear the angels standing of the infant in the straw. Ox is here and trembling stands, with the ass near God made man. See the shepherds kneeling, God in flesh revealing. Here, yes, here, now, really, truly.